Hey there! It's time to talk about pricing. Now, the miniatures painting and assembly industry, of which I am in, I think this is a little too low, is an emerging industry, and there are no guidelines for pricing. Everyone's just kind of making it up as they go along. And so what you need to do is, and I get this question a lot, how do you determine your pricing? Well, not a lot. Frequently. Frequently can be a lot too. So anyway, by the way, this is in response to a question by Power Ranger, the E spelled with a 3, and from our I guess it's our YouTube channel. And so he asked about, how do you set your prices? How do you come up with that? Well, I read a book called Pride in Performance by Les Schwab. In the Western U.S., there's a huge tire company called Les Schwab. He now passed away I think in the 90s. And I've read his book multiple times. It's not exactly well written. It's written, he wrote it himself personally. It's written anecdotally. But anyway, he tells a story in there. It's an illustrative story, not an actual story, and it's called Poor Joe. So he says, Poor Joe starts a small tire company, and in comes this trucker who owns a small fleet of trucks. And the trucker says, hey, how much for the tires? Poor Joe says, well, I don't want to, lose this client. I'd better make the sale at all. And so he quotes him a really good price, very attractive price. The trucking guy then haggles him down even further, but Joe says, well, I can't lose the sale. So he goes down even further, and then the trucking guy says, well, I need it on credit. And so Joe says, well, all right, here's on credit. And so lo and behold, the trucking guy doesn't pay him, finally pays him, and Joe makes the sliver of a margin, and basically, because of those pressures, Joe goes out of business. Then, a larger store that has, I guess, more of an official storefront sets its prices, won't haggle, doesn't give terms, and says, well, this is it, but we'll do it right, and we have guarantees or whatever it is, and i.e. a company like Les Schwab. And so the trucker goes there, and he doesn't even think to haggle. He doesn't even think to ask for terms. He just goes in and pays it. Right? So poor Joe just goes right out of business. Right? So therein lay the lesson. Be careful with your pricing. Charge enough. And so here's how it works. You gotta reverse engineer your prices. How do I explain this? You have to have certain numbers, and it mathematically turns out this way. It takes a certain amount of money to run your business. And then what happens is, to do each process takes a certain amount of time. So you have to consider all of those factors into your cost. What happens is, someone says, so they put up their little website or blog or whatever, say, hey, I'm now taking commissions. By the way, there's a zillion people out there like this. And so a guy says, hey, I have 50 Terminators. And the guy says, well, I'll tell you what, I'll paint your Terminators for $5 each. But then he finds out it takes him almost an hour to do each Terminator. But he's already taken the deposit and committed, but he finds this out after he's done the first 5 of them. And so the person realizes, oh my gosh, I'm going to earn $6 an hour for 45 hours, a full working week. But they've already been paid half. They went out and blew it on their bills or whatever it is, on their overhead. Maybe they went and bought their first paint set. Do you see how this all crumbles down? So you end up with a solo scene. He's in misery. He wants to do it, but he doesn't. So will he have the character just to eat it? And that's where you end up with people who are like, yeah, this guy just took off with my money and my models. It's that tipping point where they didn't have the character just to see it through, no matter how hard it was. But the real mistake happened with their pricing. Because they're new, they feel like they can't hold their own on their prices. And that's your very first thing that you can't make a mistake on. You have to say, I can do it for this, and that is my comfort zone, and I'm not going lower, because then I'll be out of business. So when I see people doing work that I know takes longer than what their low prices are, I know that they'll be out of business soon, and it makes me very sad because it's unsustainable. This gets back to the well-managed dock idea, which is you have to have sustainability in there. There are hard, unrelenting market forces that will force you to put your pricing at a certain level, whatever that may be. And so all I can say is be careful. So the answer is no. The answer is you must put your pricing at a level that factors in all variables. And there's meta stuff here too, which is soloist typically isn't paying unemployment tax, typically isn't paying workman's comp, typically isn't giving themselves any benefits. And so they're working kind of in a false, non-growth sort of environment, where as soon as they grow, their structure won't be able to maintain that. And so you have to account for those things. The other factor is account for emergencies. You have to consider that you're going to have bumps in the road. And the lower your prices are, you have no shock absorbers. So when you hit a pothole, bam, you feel it, and that pothole can put you right out of business, because all of a sudden now you don't even have money to ship out the models. So, be careful with that pricing. Make sure that it's right. You got to be fair, but don't be like poor Joe. Make sure that you respect yourself and your craft enough to say, no, it's this amount. This is what it costs. And if no one's interested in that, then maybe you shouldn't be in the market to begin with, because what you're doing isn't sustainable. You'll rise up and then you'll burn out after so many commissions. And it happens to a lot of guys. It happens to a lot of guys. They just can't keep up with it. But there is such a thing as being a good soloist, and there's lots of those around. And as you can see from what I've done, you can grow this into a proper business. And right now, people are being educated, and that's what so in a way, I'm doing all the painting companies to come hereafter a huge service, because I'm chopping the jungle, so to speak. I'm clearing the rocks and the stumps out. All that hard initial work of educating people as to, well, here's how it can be. Educating a new market. People don't even know they can have this done. They go in, they buy their models. It doesn't occur to them, oh, I can have this done by Blue Table Painting. We still have to reach that market. So that's all I have to say about pricing. Just reverse engineer it, find out here's my total expenses, including emergencies, and then say, okay, how many man hours will it take to do the projects, right? And when you divide those two numbers, you'll end up with a dollar amount. The total amount, the time that it takes to do projects to reach that total amount that you need, and then you just reverse engineer it that way. I probably didn't explain that very good, but all right, there you go. That's my talk on pricing. And at Blue Table Painting, guess what? My prices are right, because I'm putting out there, you can go to a proper, real, sustained 9-year veteran, and this is how much it is. And you can see what I've done. All right, that's it. Thanks.